We like to keep things simple here on the podcast. That's why today we're going to give you the 5 key areas of a complete financial plan. Stay tuned.
Let us help you reach your peak in retirement. It's time for Your Retirement Elevated.
Welcome back. Walter Storholt with you again alongside Scott Dugan. Scott, how's life treating you?
I can't complain. Summer is here, a little hot and humid, but that's to be expected.
Yeah, we can't complain too much, right? Because soon it'll be cold and we'll complain about that.
Exactly.
Well, hey, we need to talk about a great topic today, complete plans. What does a complete plan really look like? Some people have a bit of a plan. Some people have thought a little bit about how they'll retire or what's going on in their financial life. But I would imagine rarely do you meet with somebody for the first time and find out that they've got what you would describe as a complete and comprehensive financial plan.
Very rarely. And actually what sparked this episode is a conversation I had not too long ago. Came across a friend of mine, and they were having lunch with someone, and he goes, "Oh, this is Scott. He's a financial planner here in the Prairie Village area, Kansas City area." And she goes, "Oh, we're about 5 years from retirement, and I know we really need to get plan together." So, and her first question was, "So what hot stock should we be buying?"
Oh, nice.
And I'm like, that's probably not the first question that I would ask when I'm getting ready to retire. And so it just thought, I got introduced as a financial planner, talked about what we do. And then it wasn't about, hey, how do we turn our 401k or IRA into a paycheck that we don't outlive? How do we minimize taxes as much as possible? How do we keep independent as long as we can, free from healthcare and long-term care costs? Never is part of our planning checklist, pick the next hot stock. Okay.
Right.
Actually, it's not going to be on this top 5 list today either.
Yeah, it's just not some. And then isn't that interesting, the disconnect between what people focus on and what really moves the needle the most when it comes to planning for their financial future and for retirement?
Yeah, picking the hot stock is right up there with picking the lottery number or going to the casino. And, that don't have a lot of, investments are important. Picking the right stocks is important for sure. But hanging our hat on stock selection is not definitely a way to go. So I thought, let's jump in back to basics. What are the 5 key areas of complete planning? We'll break them down. And we call this our 5-step complete planning process. And really it starts with number 1, it's the income plan, because retirement is about cash flow. It's about income. How are we going to supply that paycheck so we can live life on our terms? And once we understand what we need from our money, then and only then can we move on to the investments. And again, not just the hot stocks. What strategies, what portfolios are we going to use to generate that paycheck? And we need to make sure that it keeps up with taxes and inflation. So you've heard say a lot of times, the investments are the servant to the income plan, because that's the engine that drives it. And so again, once we have that investment plan, then we go on to minimize taxes, because we want to keep as much of that money as in your pocket as possible. And then we protect it with the last 2 areas, which is the healthcare planning, which that's usually Medicare if you're over 65, and Medicare Advantage, Medicare Supplement, long-term care strategies for healthcare. And then finally, that legacy and estate. That's making sure that all your ducks in a row, all your documents are in place, so you can have your wishes met while you're alive, while you're incapacitated, and ultimately when you're gone. We want to make sure that plan is executed efficiently, effectively. So that's the high view, 30,000 foot view of the 5 key areas. And of course, in our fashion, we like to break things down and keep it organized. I thought we would spend a little bit of time breaking down some of the facets of each of these. And don't worry, you don't need to write these down or jot them down. There's going to be a download to a PDF that has all this printed on it. So we're giving you the cheat notes, basically the cliff notes of everything.
Yeah, for our YouTube audience, we'll put it on the screen as we kind of walk through each of these, but if you're just listening to the audio version, you definitely want to go get the PDF so that you can refer to it later. And boy, it's just a great checklist. I mean, this is something, Scott, that not only could somebody walk into a meeting with you and say, all right, let's make sure we're hitting all these key areas you're talking about. But, if you're working with an existing advisor or you're putting together your own financial plan, if you look at your plan that you currently have and you see that it's not addressing some of these areas, that should be a bit of a red flag that pops up and say, do I really have a complete financial plan? So hopefully this will be a helpful resource for folks who want to take us in a little deeper on that income planning to start things off.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And one thing we talk about this complete planning process. This is when, we're bringing someone, we're meeting a family for the first time, talking about working together. We do go through this checklist to build that plan. And then going forward, once we've brought someone on board, we're working together, then this becomes our strategic planning outline. And strategic planning is ongoing work that we need to do or things we need to keep updated. And so our strategic planning meetings have an agenda, which are goals, concerns, these 5 areas, and what are the action items that we need in those 5 areas to execute over the next, 1 week, 1 month, this quarter, or this year. And that's an ever evolving list of things to do. So having a plan is this stepping stone into it. Really, planning is what happens on an ongoing basis.
Okay.
All right.
Why does income planning get top billing here?
Because if we want work to become optional, then we have to have cash flow. And that cash flow needs to come into our bank account like clockwork to fund our living expenses, our essential expenses, and our discretionary expenses. And so that's
living off of just pulling stuff out of the 401k every month as a normal mode of operation is not a wise way to go, in other words.
Yeah, we want to be a little more strategic about it, because if we first figure out this breakdown of expenses, what your needs are, and what your wants are, that's the essential and discretionary. Once we know what the expenses going out the door look like, then we look at what are the income sources coming into your bank account. Are you going to have a pension? Are you going to have part-time work, Social Security? When do all those things factor in? Because if our expenses and our income from those guaranteed sources, there's usually going to be a gap. And that gap is what we need to fill by withdrawing money, for the most people, from their savings. It could be their bank accounts. It could be their IRAs, their 401ks, their Roth, their TSP, cash value life insurance, rental properties. Again, solving that gap is the income plan. And then structuring how much we need to pull from is step 1. The next layer, which we'll talk about in the tax planning, is how do we make sure that we get to spend as much of that as possible being sensitive to taxes.
Okay.
So it is optimizing pensions, Social Security, but then making sure that plan accounts for inflation, longevity, loss of a spouse. All those things can be a negative impact long term to a portfolio. So a plan. So we want to make sure, does your plan stand up to those curveballs that life throws at you?
So you're really looking at, in the income planning step, saying, all right, what's going to be automatic and how much of our expenses is that going to cover? And the more that can cover, the better. Yes. The easier the following steps probably become. But absolutely. That's the great news, is that that's not our only tool in the toolbox. We've then got other additional steps that can go to what we're going to get into next, the investment planning to help close that gap, and tax planning to squeeze as much as we can out of those opportunities.
Oh, absolutely. And so to give you an example, you actually bring up a valid point there. If between...
I like to do that every once in a while, Scott. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. If at least once a quarter, you come up with something.
Once a quarter, I got a good idea. Yeah,
that's good. That's good. And so if you had the Jetson family, and if you had George and Jane, they're always my favorite couple to pick. So if George, his Social Security is $3,000 a month, Judy's is $2,000 a month, that's $5,000 a month that they're going to have in guaranteed income.
Okay.
Well, if their living expenses are $4,000 a month, there is no gap. They don't have to withdraw money. you know. But if their gap is $1,000 a month that they need extra, well, you have to have savings or reserves to be able to draw from. So that's the math problem we go into. So again, once we know that there's a gap, then we have to figure out, okay, what is your appetite for risk? How do you feel about it? What's your capacity to absorb it? Some people are very comfortable with risk, which I look at as the fluctuation of the value of your statements in your account. If it swings, up and down 3%, 5%, 20%, if that's, some people it doesn't phase them a bit. Some people it's down $1 that they're not having a great day. So it's your tolerance for variability of value and what's your capacity for it. Okay. What can you actually take on? And so again, once we've got those things figured out, then as we want to put a plan together, pick the right strategies, the right solutions that are going to make you sleep well at night, hit the objective at the highest probability of success, and make sure that that's going to work in good markets and bad markets. So that's really the fundamentals of investment planning. Now, if you go back and we talk about the go, no-go, slow-go, no-go years, if you can link back to that video, that's where we dive a little bit deeper into this income planning and how we need to phase out or structure the income depending on where you are in that retirement journey.
Makes a lot of sense, Scott. And the cool thing is, no matter what the answer in item number 1 becomes, whether we're talking about having that gap or, hey, we have no gap, we are able to cover these expenses, you're still moving on to the second step of investment planning and these additional steps. So
Absolutely.
It just changes. If you have the gap, you're using investment planning to fill that gap. And if you don't have the gap, well, you're using investment planning to achieve other goals that you have in retirement.
Absolutely. And actually we're very fortunate with, the families that tend to gravitate towards us and that we serve. They usually have an excess amount of cash flow, especially because most people have saved a lot of their money, their retirement savings, in tax deferred accounts like IRAs or 401ks. And, with that comes a responsibility at a certain age, whether it be 73 or 75, depending on when you're born, that you've got to start taking money out. Let's call it a required minimum distribution, or RMD for short. And so even if you don't need the cash flow, the IRS is going to force you to push that money out. It's going to hit your bank account and it's going to show up on your 1040, and you're going to have to start paying the deferred taxes on it. And so again, a lot of our clients, we want to make sure what's the most tax advantage way to take the money out to fill the gap. And if you've got a surplus, how do we use tax planning along the way to diffuse that ticking tax time bomb? And, because I don't know about you, but I have a belief that tax rates are probably going to be higher in the future. And it's not because I have a crystal ball. I just know that the government's appetite for spending does not seem to be going away.
And historically, if you're new to the podcast, you might not have heard this before. If you're been a longtime listener, Scott's definitely filled you in on these details in the past. But we're at historically low tax rates, and
Correct.
So there's a lot more room for them to go up, not as much room to go the other direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we're looking at that tax piece. We first want to look at, where are your accounts sitting? Are they in? We have a bucket strategy we use. Are they taxable? Are they tax deferred? Are they tax free? And once we get the analysis of your current situation, then we can talk about, well, how much do we need to draw from? Where should we draw those dollars from? Should it be from taxable, tax deferred, or tax free? Because depending on which bucket that you pull from, the amount that you get to spend varies. If you take $1 out of the Roth bucket, you get to spend $1 because it's tax free. If it's out of your IRA or tax deferred bucket, you may get to spend 70, 75 cents of that dollar. So we've got to be careful there to make sure we know what's the lay of the land, where are all those, how much do you have situated in each account? What's the proper way to distribute those? And once we've solved the gap, how can we efficiently move from that tax deferred bucket over to the tax free bucket potentially a little bit over time. So that insulates you down the road for any future tax increases.
Is your retirement journey truly tailored to your needs? In his book, Exceptional Retirement: Tools and Strategies for Retiring on Your Own Terms, Scott Dugan addresses the crucial questions all retirees ask. Discover the power of a clear financial decision-making process that can prevent major retirement mistakes and unlock exceptional opportunities. In the book, Scott outlines 4 essential questions that guide retirees toward successful outcomes. Don't miss out on key insights that could define your future. Available now on Amazon. Click the link in the description of this episode to get your copy of Exceptional Retirement.
I feel like this is a good time to mention, Scott. I know we have 2 more steps to cover, or 2 more key areas of building a complete plan. But I think this is a great time to mention, although we've put these in a nice 5-step or 5 key area outline, they don't exactly happen chronologically.
Correct.
You're taking into account tax planning as you're building the income plan, as you're looking at the investments, and as you're doing the next 2 steps of the process, right?
Correct. Yeah, we look at everything so it's almost like a movie or TV series. In a 8-season TV series, there's a story arc that goes from the first episode to the last episode. Well, each of those episodes has its own story arc.
I love
inside of that.
Yeah.
And so these 5 are 5 distinct things where we're trying to get to the end.
Yeah.
But each of those has its own storyline to follow in the context of the larger storyline, which is making sure that have you achieved simplicity, clarity, and confidence in the plan that has been put together on your behalf.
Yeah. Great stuff. I love it. All right. You want to hit healthcare planning? I know that's a key.
And the last 2 are very, very quick. Healthcare planning, most of our clients are either, coming up, on Medicare or in Medicare age of 65. So we have specialists that we work with that help our clients guide them through that process. And then analyzing options for long-term care. And that first step for long-term care is really quantifying what would the economic impact be if one or both of you needed some sort of long-term care help. And we just use the national averages. We run scenarios and says, well, here's the economic impact of going into long-term care. And I'll give you an example. We had clients that are concerned, about long-term care, and they don't have anything in as a strategy. They don't have any long-term care insurance or anything like that. I said, well, let's look at what that impact is. I said, with your current assets today at 65, and let's say you need it at age 80 and you need 5 years. I said, well, at age 80, you're going into that with about $3 million in resources. And that's after taking all their income needs, for, 15 plus years. I said, if you use 5 years of care, your surviving spouse is going to have about $2 million on the other side of that. I said, so about a third of your resources, hypothetically, could be used up if you need long-term care. And that example, I said, how do you feel about that? Like, well, that's what we save the money for, is in case we needed it. And I said, well, so you're comfortable with using that money for your care, and your beneficiaries, they end up with, $2 million, $1.5 million. I said, you know what? We're comfortable with that. We don't think we need to put any money aside for that. But we walk through that exercise. Yeah. And now we check that box. We'll re-look at that every year, every couple of years. But right now they're confident after seeing a plan that they're going to be okay if life throws them that curveball.
Mm. And that answer might be totally different for the next couple that you meet with, or the next individual. They may want that assurity of hey, it's all taken care of for you, and we've got the actual planning change that you need.
Exactly. And as we round this out, legacy and estate planning. And so we really want to make sure that we have all of our documents in place. Our HIPAA disclosure forms, our durable power of attorney, healthcare directives, all those things, all those documents.
This is the fun stuff, right, Scott?
Yeah, we have fun stuff. That's why we leave it to the estate planning attorneys to do this. They have to
just help guide us on this one.
Have all those conversations. But it's hey, how do we want to be taken care of if we become incapacitated or sick? And how do we want our affairs to be handled after we're both gone? That's what good estate planning does, is gives clear direction on how things are going to be handled. It's like a set of instructions. The second layer of that is if we're going to leave dollars behind to kids, grandkids, charity, or other organizations, we need to make sure that we're doing that in the most efficient, effective manner. And we're giving the right type of accounts to the right people. So an example, if we pass away and we've got $2 million in our estate, and we've got $1 million in a brokerage account. It's stock that we've purchased over the years, and we bought it outside of an IRA. And we've got $1 million IRA that's tax deferred. So Uncle Sam hasn't gotten their tax dollars on it. And let's say that you have one child, but you also are charitably inclined, and you want half the money to go to your child, and half the money to go to the charity. Well, we're going to want to give the IRA to the charity because there's no tax liability when you give that money to the charity. The surviving child gets the brokerage account or the non-tax deferred stock, non-IRA stock. They get a step up in basis under current law. So there's no taxes when they receive that $1 million. That's what we mean by being tax efficient with the distribution options.
Great example of how point number 3 rolls right into another one of these key areas. These all layer on top of each other, all these decisions.
Correct. And as a final note, the reason that I built the Elevated Retirement Group the way I have is that these are all 5 key areas. And when I started this business over 20 plus years ago, I would put a plan together and then I would give it to the client, and they would have to go talk to their healthcare person. They would have to go talk to their CPA. They would have to go talk to the estate planning attorney. They would have to be the quarterback and make sure all these people and explain everything. Like, does that really make sense? Why are these people not under one roof? And that was the vision I had a long time ago. And that's why I think we feel so fortunate to have, the certified financial planners, the estate plan attorneys, the CPAs, the healthcare professionals, all in one place. So when someone comes in, our clients always say, well, this is like the one-stop shop. I get to come to one place and everything gets handled. And I don't have to go give direction to everybody. I've got a team that's working for me and communicating. And it's very satisfying when people give us that praise and give us that feedback, because something I thought needed to happen a long time ago and it's come to fruition in its current state. That's very satisfying that people are finding value in that.
Yeah, that's awesome, Scott. I'm so glad to hear that. And I'm glad that so many families can be helped by working with you to achieve a complete plan. And so if you're thinking about financial planning, if you're thinking about retirement planning and trying to figure out what is the best way to do it, look at your current plan. Am I addressing all of these 5 areas within that plan? If those answers are no, well, let that be, again, a small red flag. No need to panic, but a small red flag that maybe you don't have as complete or comprehensive of a plan as you might have thought. And so if you'd like to work with Scott and his team at Elevated Retirement Group, it's actually really easy to set up a time to visit or to chat to see if you'd be a good fit to work with one another. A couple of ways that you can do that we'll put up on the screen for our YouTube audience, and you can find contact info in the description of today's show if you're listening to the audio podcast. But you can also call 913-393-4724 to get in touch, 913-393-4724, or go online to listentoscott.com. Lots of great info for you there on the website, past episodes, downloadable guides. Again, all sorts of good stuff available to you there, listentoscott.com. Scott, great episode today. Thanks for all the help and the guidance, and we'll pick up another good topic next week.
All right, sounds great.
All right, thanks so much. That's Scott. I'm Walter. We'll see you next time right back here on Your Retirement Elevated.
Investment advisory services offered through Elevated Capital Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Are you on the path to retirement but feel uncertain about your direction? Don't let myths and misconceptions cloud your journey. Before stepping into a lengthy retirement, gain clarity and confidence with a complimentary financial review. Schedule a conversation with Scott Dugan. It's completely free. Just click the link in the description below or call us at 913-393-4724. Let's start a conversation about what's most important to you as you plan for a successful retirement.